Hey everybody, it's Kelly Cooper and welcome to another Facebook Live video. Today I want to talk about a very important question that a lot of you would probably answer no if you're honest, but you should want to answer yes. In order to receive what you want, are you willing to receive what you don't? And what do I mean by this? Again, you're going to be like, no, I just want what I want. Now, who wants what they don't want, right? Or who wants to receive what they don't want, right? Very understandable response, right? But when we start understanding how energy works and how it's just our pure energy, what we're putting out into the world predominantly, how we're focusing predominantly, that's what's influencing our reality and nothing beyond that. We start to understand a lot of the ways our mind is functioning and how it affects our energy. A lot of the stuff our mind is fighting for as far as our emotions and our focus and how we should be going about this work. We see none of it's not going to work. We can't do it, right? And one of the things we start to realize is resistance in any form to what we don't want, what we don't like, things that might happen in the future that we don't want to happen, and focusing on them and not wanting them to happen and fighting for all our negative feelings about, and wanting to justify our negative feelings, somehow thinking that that will mitigate the impact on our energy because they're justified. Again, we see none of that's going to fly in the world of conscious creation. So when we're willing to receive what we don't want as well as what we do, all that resistance, it goes away. Because the only reason we're resistant to all these things is because we think they can't happen, they shouldn't happen. If this thing happens or that thing happens, our mind assigns a meaning to this experience that makes it seem undesirable, right? And then what we're doing and not even realizing it because it's so deeply ingrained, all we're focusing on all the time is what we don't want. All these things that may happen in the future that we don't want either. And if this happens or that happens, oh my God, it's going to be so bad. That can't happen. And again, our mind somehow thinks that all this resistance to what we don't want is helping us somehow. Like it thinks like we're reminding the universe constantly, remember universe, I don't want this thing. I don't want this scenario. I don't want these things. Just so you know, I'm going to keep thinking about this just so you know I don't want this to happen. But the universe is not responding to what you don't want. It's not responding to your fears and your resistance to potential future outcomes. It's just responding to your energy in a neutral way. And in those frames of mind and those ways of operating, our energy is very much in a place that's not very friendly to receiving the things we want. It makes all of these things we don't want to happen maybe more likely to happen because that energy is a match to the financial problems, a match to this thing or that thing that we're hoping doesn't happen, a match to a problem in our life now still remaining a problem because we're not in the energy of the solution, right? And because our mind doesn't understand energy, our mind thinks that our willingness to drop our resistance around all of these unwanted scenarios and even being willing and being okay with them happening and willing to embrace them makes them more likely to happen. Again, your mind does not have a fucking clue about energy. You have to remember this. You have to remind yourself of this constantly. Because you see how it is. You have a mind, and the way your mind works and all its weird dysfunction and all its fears and all of its clinging to your pain, thinking your pain is some kind of motivator to get what you want and your need is a motivator and doesn't want you to get rid of it. When you start to realize like, oh my God, I can't keep doing this. For a long time I was listening to my mind because it actually convinced me that somehow all of this benefits me. Oh my God, it really doesn't. I'm going to really stop trying to do it this way. I'm really going to move away from my mind's perspectives and I'm going to stop fighting for all of its bullshit, right? You have to constantly remind yourself of this because again, your mind will never understand how energy works. And it will never willingly let you move into these spaces and make these inner transformations without putting up one hell of a fight. Because again, it doesn't understand how these energetic goals actually serve its agenda as far as you getting these things in your life that it wants. It doesn't get it. It thinks that it's the exact opposite. But when you're willing to receive everything in order to receive particular things you want, that puts you in a much better position to get them. Because that state of resistance to what we don't want is a much bigger barrier to you getting your stuff than any other thing that your mind thinks it is. It's not because you're not focusing positively enough. It's not because you're not happy and high energy enough. It's not because you're not using the right tools or techniques, or you're not saying your affirmations enough, or you're not wording them properly, or your vision board is not an accurate representation. All this stuff, you're not using the right workbook, you're not doing enough personal, all of these things that your mind wants to think the problem is. It's just resistance. It's just resistance to all the stuff we don't want and don't like and we hope doesn't happen in the future. Because energetically, when we understand what's happening, we see when we're in that state, we're very focused on what we don't want. We're anxious, we're fearful. All of this fear leads us to take all of these actions that further muck up our energy, because we're taking all these actions from this space of trying to manipulate results and force outcomes and force things through particular channels that we think it can only come through, or that our mind prefers it to come through, blah, 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 right? So when you drop that resistance and you're just willing to accept whatever shows up, even the stuff you don't like, think about what that does for your energy. It's a very, very good thing. And again, your mind does not understand that. That openness to everything makes it much more likely that these things won't happen because you're not focused on them. Because if you're okay with them happening, you're not going to give them all that attention anymore, worrying that they're not going to happen, hoping they don't happen, maneuvering things in the world of action to try to prevent all these outcomes, blah, right? You're not going to be doing that anymore. And energetically, all of that's wonderful for your vibration. So in order to receive what you want, are you willing to receive stuff you don't want? In order to get the stuff you want now, what are you not willing to receive right now? What are things that you feel resistant to? Would you be okay with them happening? Would you be willing to accept the fact that if these unwanted things happen, they're actually serving a very important purpose in helping you get where you want to be? Would you be willing to suspend judgment on these manifestations and not tell the story your mind wants to tell about them and realize that inherently they mean nothing and you just see them as neutral energetic feedback? That's another thing too to think about. A lot of these unwanted circumstances you're resistant to, inherently, again, they have no meaning. They're just neutral feedback. And everything that happens is serving us. We might not like it, but we can recognize how it's serving us. We don't have to love it or try to find some positive spin on it. We could still think it kind of sucks. But again, we can recognize, yeah, it's actually serving me somehow. I see why this is happening. So that's another thing too to think about with all these unwanted scenarios that you're not willing to experience and you're hoping don't happen. They're serving a purpose. Would you be willing to let your finances get even worse if that's the only way that you could fully work through your money shit? That your money situation gets so bad and you feel so terrible, that's the only way that you'll force yourself into that space to finally deal with your money shit? Because right now, things aren't bad enough that you're actually being forced to deal with your feelings at the deepest level. When you think of it that way, it's like, oh yeah, that's not so bad if that actually happened. My mind wouldn't like it, but I see the purpose that would serve. And the story I'm telling about why that's happening, that's actually not a true story, and it's just it's just a neutral experience. That's just a reflection of my energy. And if I can see the energetic feedback there, that's going to help me. Would you be willing to receive a new relationship, a new serious relationship, but it doesn't end in marriage? You'll break up with this person at some point and you'll have to start over again. Would you be willing to receive that? And our mind is like, no, I want the one. The next relationship has to be the one. I want to get married already. But then you see, oh, if that's what were to happen, that's what was meant to happen. Not from some preordained, this is written in the stars space, but energetically, the experience is just neutral feedback. This person was serving a different purpose. He wasn't meant to be the husband, the fiance. He was there to show me greater clarity on my ideal relationship. I still had some fucked up stuff about my own self-image, and I needed to see that in another serious relationship, and I needed to have that stuff brought out, because now with all this feedback, I'm in a much better position energetically to really attract a really great relationship. Okay, great. Yeah, that it didn't work out, that's fine. It wasn't the bad thing my mind thinks it was. With your business, for example, if you want to receive more clients and more money, are you also willing to receive criticism? Are you willing to receive people disagreeing with your perspectives and your advice? Are you willing to receive people just telling you that they don't think you're good at what you do? In order to receive happy customers and clients, are you willing to receive some that might not be so happy with you and they're going to want refunds and they're going to complain about your service? You know what I'm saying? And the mind would be like, no, I just want the money and the happy clients and the perfect clients, and I don't want any of that. And again, right, when we think about all the stuff we don't want and we're not willing to receive, energetically that kind of kinks us up a bit, and it kind of gets in the way of getting the things that we do want to receive, that we are willing to receive, because our energy is in a space of we're focused on all the stuff we don't want. And when you're at peace with receiving things that your mind might not want, seeing that they serve a purpose in the grander scheme of things, and that inherently they don't mean any of the stuff your mind's going to want them to mean. Because the only reason we're resistant to all these scenarios is because we're telling a story about these situations that doesn't feel good. Again, not realizing it's just energetic feedback. It's just it's a stepping stone into getting where we want to be, and the situation as it's manifesting, as it's unfolding, is actually absolutely perfect, and nothing has gone wrong. So yeah, in order to receive the things you want, are you willing to receive what you don't? Are you willing to accept that certain manifestations that your mind wants to judge as bad are actually don't mean anything that your mind thinks they mean, and they're actually serving a very important purpose in helping you get where you want to be? Are you willing to accept your mind does not understand anything about energy and how it's going to fight you every step of the way on the inner transformations required of you to be a true conscious creator, and that it doesn't understand that dropping resistance to all the stuff you don't want is actually makes it less likely to actually happen? And again, even if these things were to happen, they don't mean what your mind thinks they mean anyway. So dropping this resistance, it's not about trying to control your reality and thinking, well, I'm open and I'm okay with it, so it means that it won't happen. Some of these things, might they still happen? Yeah, possibly. If that's the perfect manifestation to get you where you need to be, it still might happen. But again, the story your mind is telling around the experience now, you see it's just this fucked up untrue story, and it's just neutral feedback. It's actually serving you. And if this thing were to happen, it doesn't mean what your mind might think it means now. Whether it's the next relationship that doesn't end in marriage, your finances getting worse before they get better, stuff happening in your business, stuff that your mind doesn't like and will judge as bad, but is actually preparing you energetically for the success that you say you want to see in it. All of these things, right? So, yeah, our biggest problem is all our resistance to what we don't want in the future, what we don't like now. Again, it's not that you're not positive enough, that you don't have enough faith, that you're not using the right tools or techniques, or you're not using them frequently enough or in the right combination, or that you haven't found the right program yet, or the right this, or it has nothing to do with any action, anything like that. It's just resistance. Think about before you knew about the law of attraction and conscious creation and you weren't paying any attention to your inner world. I'm sure you had plenty of good things happen. You weren't constantly focusing on them. You weren't trying to attract them. Just energetically you were a match. There wasn't any resistance to these things happening for whatever reason, whether you just naturally held a certain belief from when you were young that lent itself to it, or whatever, right? You just naturally had beliefs that served you. They formed somehow just as easily as the shitty ones. Right? You weren't doing anything. You weren't trying. It was just there was no resistance to these things happening. So they happened. It's really the resistance to what we don't like and what we don't want now and possibly in the future. That's really our biggest problem. So when you're open to everything unfolding, however it's going to unfold, when you're willing to see everything that happens as serving you, and all the bad things that your mind labels as bad actually aren't bad or good, they're just nothing. They're just experiences that we then assign a meaning to. All of these things that you worry about happening, you're not going to worry so much about them anymore. Again, because you're not going to view them in the same way that your mind might be viewing them now, whatever story it's telling about these experiences and why it would be a bad thing if it happened, and you're not willing to accept it. It's like, oh yeah, you know what? I'd really like for the next person I meet to be the one, but I accept that my next relationship, that might end too. And that might be something hard that I'll have to go through. And it'll bring up new shit that I'll have to work on. But I'll see that it served a purpose in helping me get to the really good relationship. And it wasn't meant to be the one. So I'm okay with that it ended. I'm okay that if it doesn't work out, I'll be okay with that. Yeah, you know what? I'm really resistant to deal with my money shit. I'm willing to let my finances get worse if that's what it takes for me to finally deal with my money shit at the depth I need to deal with it. Because now I'm forced to deal with it because I'm just being massively triggered because my finances got even worse. You know what I'm saying? Again, our mind doesn't like these scenarios because it assigns a meaning to them, and it looks at them in a way that feels bad, but then you realize that that's not any inherent objective fact about what's happening, either now or possibly in the future. It's just one particular story of coming from a very limited perspective from our mind that has a very limited understanding of what's happening, who you are, what you're capable of. And again, it does not understand energy. Your mind thinks that all you're fighting against what you don't want and always voicing your discontent with your current circumstances, somehow this helps you. It doesn't. In the world of shitty feeling action where you're trying to force results through action, yeah, all that stuff might serve you because all that pain can be a great motivator to put yourself through more pain to try to change. But in the world of energy, all that shit will just manifest, you'll just manifest more shit, right? So again, you always have to be vigilant that your mind doesn't understand this, because the more you understand that your mind doesn't understand, you stop letting it get in the way so much of all these inner transformations you need to make that you now understand are actually going to benefit you. And and again, you understand that your mind doesn't understand. So when it wants you to fight for your shit, when it wants you to fight for your ick and fight against what is, and think again, somehow this benefits you, again, it just doesn't understand. So yeah, think about right now, all the stuff you want, that you want to receive. What are you willing to receive things that you don't want as well, knowing that that could actually help you? Understanding that your openness to things unfolding however they unfold, and if stuff happens that your mind doesn't like, it's actually fine anyway, and there's actually not a real problem. Are you willing to receive this one thing, the money, the job, the boyfriend, the whatever? Are you willing to receive every experience, every possible thing that could happen? And again, it doesn't make, your mind thinks that that makes it more likely to happen because you're open and you're okay with it. No, that makes it less likely to happen because you're not in a state of resistance. When you're okay with all of this stuff happening, you're not worrying about it and focusing on it and taking all these actions, trying to prevent it and getting in your own way constantly. You're just like, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Whatever happens, I know it'll be okay and it'll serve me, and I'm not going to worry about all of these things. I'll just be open to each experience as it comes. The next guy I start dating, maybe he'll be the one, maybe he won't. I'm not going to give a lot of energy and attention to it. I'm just going to see what happens with the relationship, knowing whatever happens with it, just neutral feedback on my energy, and it's fine. Whatever happens with my finances, I know that it's all serving me, and whatever happens, is that's what's meant to happen. Neutral feedback on my energy, again, it's fine, no problem. Knowing that everything that's happening is serving you, provided you see it that way. You can only benefit from this perspective. You can only benefit from all these warm, fuzzy, good feeling perspectives if you actually are willing to embrace them as your own. You can't benefit from them if you fight them and don't believe it's that way, because then you can't step into that energy because you're fighting it, right? So yeah, to receive one thing, you have to be willing to receive everything. And again, your mind doesn't understand the benefit of this state of non-resistance. That's the most powerful thing you can do with your energy, is do what you can to be in a state of non-resistance. And getting into that state means being okay with whatever might happen. Yeah, a part of your mind's always going to judge things and not like, this is bad, that's not good, and this is whatever. It's going to tell a story that doesn't feel good. But a large part of you can be like, it's fine. I know that it's okay. Because some of you have seen now, you probably spend a lot of your emotional energy being in a state of extreme resistance to the stuff you don't want to happen in the future, the stuff that's happening now you don't like, and you see it's probably not helping very much, right? It's not making these things go away. It's not making these things less likely to happen. It's not making the things you want show up. So a little logical thinking can help us a little right now, right? If all my resistance to everything I don't like seems to not be helping, let me try being in a state of non-resistance to everything. Let me see what that does. And it'll do a lot for you. It's very, very powerful, because again, our resistance, that's our main problem energetically. It's not about not being positive enough or your vibe's not high enough or whatever. It's just resistance, because all that resistance means we're focused on all the stuff we don't want, we don't like, we hope doesn't happen, we hope goes away, and all this stuff, right? So that's where all our focus and our energy is, and that's where all our emotional energy is going. So that's our big problem. You get into a state of non-resistance and you're willing to make peace with what's happening now, what may happen in the future that your mind might not like, but you're like, okay, whatever, it's fine. Energetically, that's extremely powerful. And you get to feel better right away. Because think about how much of your energy right now, emotional energy, is spent thinking about what you don't like now and all this stuff in the future that might happen that you don't like either. And oh my God, I hope that doesn't happen. And how much physical effort you might be exerting trying to avoid all of these unwanted outcomes and trying to force change now and all the stuff that's happening now you don't like. All of that feels terrible. And all the while, what are you focused on? What you don't want and you don't have. LOA 101. You have no choice but to continue manifesting a reality where that's what it looks like. What you don't have and what you don't want is dominant, right? So yeah, again, your mind doesn't understand any of this, so it wants to fight you. But the more you remind yourself that your mind does not get it, the less it gets in the way of you making these transformations that are kind of required of you, and you kind of don't have a choice but to make them. So yeah, in order to receive one thing, are you willing to receive everything? What things are you resistant to right now that you're not wanting to happen in the future, that you're resisting in your current reality right now? Can you just see them for neutral energetic feedback? Are you willing to stop fighting against them and focusing and huffing and puffing that you don't like it? And just be like, okay, this is what's happening right now. What's the feedback? How could I use this to move forward? Because that's all it is. It's all just feedback. And when you see what's in your energy that's getting in the way of all the stuff you want, that's a good thing. Because you can't be a conscious creator if you're not conscious of your energy. So our mind doesn't like these sorts of manifestations, but they're helping us. They're serving a very useful purpose. And it's good that we're aware of what's happening in our energy. Because if we're not aware of it, we can't change it. And if our energy is full of stuff now that's keeping all this stuff from us and keeping us in these situations that we don't like, we can't get out of them because we're not changing the level of cause. So you see, all of this stuff is serving us. Our mind, ego mind, wants to roll our eyes at these perspectives. They're super annoying, especially when we're not feeling great, but it doesn't make them any less true, right? So we'll always be faced with this choice of looking at things through the filter of spiritual truth and spirit, how spirit or big you or God would see the situation, and how your mind sees it. Mind filter's a shitty filter, and it'll never feel good. So yeah, that's it. What are you not willing to receive? Would you be willing to receive it, knowing that that makes it less likely to happen? And even if it were to happen, that's what was supposed to happen, and it's all good, and it's going to help you. So yeah, that's it, guys. For more content and information about my coaching services and products I have on offer, head on over to livelifemade-to-order.com. Bye-bye.